just got home from a long day. It's not quite, it's about evening now. It's what, 5 p.m. I've been out of the house for a little while and I wanted to do a haul of what I got. On the way home, I guess we'll go backwards. I went to Ross, I got some eggs. Silver Falls Coffee Company. John and I went to Sisters a couple weeks ago because I'd never been and we knew it was snowing, so we wanted to go and it was really cute. And maybe I'll insert a clip of that in here, but I got this, I really wanted to try it. Sumatra is one of my favorite coffees, or Arabica, that's also one I really like. That's what happens when your cat won't leave you alone. I also haven't said hello to her yet. Kitty, I'm sorry. Would you like a hug? I didn't mean to do that. Come here. You're gonna run away from me. We're not doing that. If anybody has a cat, they understand. Yeah, and then I got eggs. On my way home, I also went to this bookstore. I'll include a little clip of that too. And I'm really picky about the books that I get nowadays because one, I want to read something that's a series because I don't like the one and done books. Like I'm reading because it's my hobby, so I want to like have a novel that continues, you know what I'm saying? So I got The Address by Fiona Davis, which is a series. I'm assuming it's like a mystery romance kind of deal, but I'll explain more about that later on. I'm thinking I'm gonna do talk about what book I'm reading that month or week, and it probably will end up being a week because I read pretty quickly. That's the series. And then this is the one and done. I'm thinking it's called The Children's Book by A.S. Byatt. It's a Booker Prize winning author of Possession. It's a novel. And this one's more so like make-believe, like fantasy about like a museum and this boy finding this book, da 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 da. But I love a little fantasy because it just keeps my inner child happy, you know what I'm saying? That's really important for me. And I also went to Goodwill. That was like one of the first things I did today. And I found the most beautiful dress. I've been looking for something like this for a while, and it feels like such good material because I really hate buying stuff from department stores and it's so expensive and it's shitty quality. Like I cannot do it. But it's this green, it's like an emerald green dress with these beautiful flowers on it, and it buttons up all the way down to about like a quarter. Look at how gorge. Look at how gorge. Of course I need to wash it and whatnot, but it's just like, it feels like cotton. Let's see what it says. There's no description of what material it is, but I bought it for $7 at Goodwill. It's like literally, I do not like buying from department stores. I can't do it, but it's super long. It goes about to like halfway down to my like calf, and I'm 6 foot, so it's a long dress. And the buttons stop about like quarter of the way up the dress, technically. Gorgeous. And then these I'm really excited about because I've been wanting to find a new pair of shoes, and for me, buying shoes is really like, it's for a purpose, right? Like I'm not the kind of person who wants to buy like shoes just to have it in my closet. Like I would consider myself simple when it comes to clothing. Like I didn't buy this scarf. It was gifted to me for Christmas from my best friend back home. But I want staple pieces in my closet because it's just sustainable and it makes me feel better because I don't like buying stuff just to get rid of it. Like it's just such a waste. It's a huge waste. So I got these flats. I know that little ballerina flats are like, have been in style again for a while. And I just didn't know if I was into it because I I'm in between like tomboy and girly. Like I definitely consider myself more indie. Like I wear Doc Martens, but I also wear cowgirl boots and I wear sneakers half the time because I am mostly a pedestrian. Like I walk everywhere, I take the bus. And these have a pretty solid bottom to them, which was half the reason why I wanted them. But like, look at how, like, look at the point of them. Like they just look like little ballerina flats and it's just so perfect. Like I can imagine wearing a pair of blue jeans with these and then like whatever top. You know, I'd figure that shit out. I'm not the most like, I wouldn't say I'm not fashionable because I do enjoy fashion. Like right now I'm wearing panda dunks with some leggings. I'm wearing a brown sweater. Like I know how to layer my colors correctly. You know what I'm saying? Like I like to do that. But these are so gorgeous. And I was thinking about buying these other flats that had a really small heel on them that were brown and they had more of like a scoop opening to them, except they were just a little bit too big. Like I knew if I was walking somewhere, the back of my heel would slip out, and that is the most irritating thing when it comes to shoes. So I couldn't do that. Oh my gosh, Kitty's already just sitting on the dress that I have on the table. But yeah, ballet flats and a beautiful long sleeve dress that I know will keep me warm in the springtime too, because I'm, you know, looking for things that I can carry into the next seasons. Again, staple wardrobe, capsule wardrobe, whatever you want to call it. We're going for that. But yeah, I just wanted to give a little like update of what I got because it was fun. Literally the second I got home. Do you see this? Do you see this girl? It's gonna take me forever to get comfortable with how to put my computer, my phone up for recording. But I just did this. It rose for about an hour, like 40 minutes really. Where's the? And it's Bob's Red Mill gluten-free homemade wonderful bread mix. Cute name. I learned how to do this little paper trick with the parchment paper at work actually because I learned a lot of stuff about baking and cooking in the kitchen at my job, which is incredible. But I decided to put raisins and cinnamon and butter all up in this bread, and I haven't baked it yet, but it's about to go in for about 90 minutes, so an hour and a half. We're gonna see how this goes. Fingers crossed. Hi YouTube. I'm back with my microphone. And I have a couple of things I wanted to chit chat about. So I'm going to be 25 in like 2 months, roughly. My birthday is the 16th of March, so it's like 2 months away. And every year, without a doubt, I enter this like incredibly reflective phase of my life, right around the new year. Like, also, I think it obviously started with like the societal pressure of like planning things and like, you know, getting your feet on the ground or like starting anew when the new year starts January 1st. But I've never really been one to like follow resolutions or anything, and that's because of ADHD. But I wanted to just kind of sit down and talk about what that means to me, because I feel like what I want to listen to on the internet is people talking about their personal experiences, and people do. That's where I've gotten the inspiration from as well. So I have like 4 little bullet points here. I guess I can give a little preview. So the first one is, what have I learned in 24 years of life? What do I value most? And then that's a pretty broad one. Like, I couldn't kind of go anywhere with that. Religion, how to navigate current mental ADHD/autism as a woman. I think the biggest thing that has been, what's the word? Obvious to me, and like the forefront of my everyday life and what I think about all the time, is how I'm a woman now. Like, you know, when you turn 20 and you're like, I'm a woman, but I'm still like a teen. I'm still a young adult. I know that 25 is still technically young adult until you're like 30, and then people are like, okay, you're like a real adult. But honestly, I feel like 25 is a big deal. And it's a big deal because your frontal lobe develops and you start to see life in a different perspective, which I've seen life in a different perspective for like many years now, especially the last like 5 years have been extremely transformative for me as a person. Like the last 2 years, for example, have been crazy in their own different way. Like the last 5 years have been in my brain, the way I had been talking to it about a therapist that I was talking to was that I saw it in increments of 4. Like 20 to 24 was this huge transformative period, and now I'm going into the 25th year, and I'm just ready for anything, honestly, at this point. But really, it's when you are an adult, a young adult who goes through life kind of by yourself. Like, I do have family still, but I always grew up with this sense of you're on your own, and like I kind of needed, if I need to figure something out, if I need a life direction, it's on me. Like, I haven't had a lot of parental guidance in that sense. Like, also to my own, like, I chose that in a way, but I also was given that in a way. Like, I chose to move away from my hometown during COVID, because of other circumstances. I think there was a lot of things happening for everybody around that time, so I'm not going to go into it because it's also personal and not important. But I was a teen. I was 20, about to turn 21. I had 2 birthdays in COVID, which sucked. 20 and 21, I both COVID, and it was rough. But that was a huge first transformative step for me, was getting away from my hometown, which, beautiful town. Like, I still love it so much. My dad still lives there. Like, I grew up in Sonoma County, and I will always have like a really special place in my heart for Sonoma County. Like, I'm literally going back in March to see my dad for the first time this year, technically. And it's going to be the first time I've been home in a long time, so I'm very excited. Anyways, so it was just, there's crazy transformative times, and when the period from 20 to 25, just, it can be extremely difficult, or you can see it as extremely transformative, and that's the way that I chose to take it, because one, optimism wins. It will always win. Like, you cannot not be optimistic about something. Like, you can't be optimistic about something and then, like, just inherently be bummed. Like, there's this energy that comes from seeing the good in things, and I know people say that all the time, but it's hard to imagine it until you start practicing it with everything in your life and leading with optimism. So that has been a huge thing in my life. That is what have I learned in 24 years of life, is how to be optimistic, which I can hear adults telling me that when I was young and, not seeing or understanding it. But from the specific circumstances that I had going on in my teen years and young adult life, it was really hard for me to face that and be like, yeah, you're right. Like, I should be optimistic, because depression and mental health plays a huge factor in being able to take hold of your emotions and be able to put yourself in a specific light to move forward with gratitude, with peace, with understanding, with having learned more lessons. Like, that's all that life is lessons. And once I figured that out, which was probably 2023, life got a lot easier. Like, it wasn't, oh, whoa, me, like, everything is so hard. Why is everything so hard? Because when you focus on how hard it is, you lose sight of what's currently happening, is that you're learning something. And what are you learning is what is the most important part out of those things. So that's probably the biggest thing that I have learned in my 24 years of life. More so developing in the last 2 years is how to be optimistic and how to take those lessons that you've learned and see difficult times as lessons and move forward with that. I'm sure I could go on about more things, but we'll elaborate. What do I value most? And when I wrote that down, it was just a broad spectrum in my mind. Like, it was just, in my brain, it was, what do I value most right now? And right now, I can tell you, I value my personal time so much, because the person that I am becoming right now is completely different than who I was even a couple months ago, like, in a very different way. And I say in a very different way because when you are so optimistic and you look at life a certain way and you move with God, move with your religion, move with your own personal intuition, which is like the biggest part of it, you will notice how much you change as a person so rapidly. And sometimes it's a slow descent, and it's or a slow incline, and you can't see it exactly as it's happening, and then one day you're like, oh my gosh, like, now everything makes sense. Or it also just depends on life experiences. Like, there's so many different factors that can play into this. So I'm not like a life expert. I can't give you like real advice other than my own experience, which I can call that advice, but I can also give it unsolicited opinion on the internet, right? So take it as you will. But I just think that's really important to think about when you are my age, or when you're a couple years younger. Like, when you are in your early 20s, the first 5 years of your 20s is like the first 5 years of your life, really. Like, something's happening. And I say that because when you're a teen, no matter what people are going to tell you, you are going to do what you want to do. And most of the time, that leads to you just having to learn a bunch of lessons, because either you got to learn it the hard way, the way that I am, or you just... Kids are stubborn. Teenagers are stubborn. I was the most stubborn, but I'm also really glad that I was, because it's turned me into the person I am today, which is incredible. Like, I'm very proud of the person I am today, and I would not be who I was or who I am now if I didn't go through as many hard things as I did in my life. And I say hard things because there's a lot of things in my life that happened to me that were traumatic and shaped me to be very empathetic and to be very understanding of the world, but there's also a different lens that I look at through now, which has provided me the ability to tap into optimism and all those things like I was saying before. This really sucks. My phone is at 10%, and I'm on a roll right now, so let's see how much farther I can get into this before my phone dies. So yeah, what do I value most is my personal time, how I'm growing, how I'm treating myself, and because that will reflect on how you treat other people, and it will reflect on who you end up surrounding yourself with, which I've been hearing a lot about that lately when I listen to people talking about life and answering questions like these. For example, Jade Amber is someone who I really look up to. She went to God and has awakened herself in that way, in a way that I don't know that I'm ready to do that, but I really admire the strength that it takes to push yourself to that limit, to that like release of everything that you know, and to practice something and put it in the hands of God. That's something that really scares me. So that leads right into religion, which I am on a huge teeter-totter right now about that. And that's one of the biggest things about being in your mid-20s is you are forming your mind about so many things, either like from societal pressure, from the family you have, the family you were born into. Like there's so many different things that can make you feel or think a different way. The way you grew up, like what I was just talking about with reflection and optimism, there's so much. So I have zero religious experience in my entire life. Other than spirituality, which I'll get into, I grew up atheist, essentially. Like, I've always believed in the Big Bang and, like, straight science. And, like, if it wasn't science, like, don't give it to me. I never read the Bible. I still haven't read the Bible. But that is something that I want to do this year. Like, there's a lot of things that come into being this age. And I guess what I want to say is I feel like I'm doing it a specific way that I hope that other people can take positive reinforcement from, because let's face it, this day and age, being 25 is really hard. It's really hard because the world is not the same it used to be. It's extremely expensive to just live. It's so hard to tackle mental health, even though there's a lot of resources nowadays that I can be so appreciative for. There's so many factors. So let's just know that when you're listening to this, know that I'm thinking about all those things, and I'm not just like some woo-woo hippie that's like, oh, you should do this because I said so. It's because I am taking what I see and what I've experienced from having to survive and like learn how to be a human being and go through extremely traumatic times in my life that have left me without most parental guidance, which is a huge thing. There's just so much. There's so much that I can get into. But we're going to have to take a break here, and I'll be right back because no battery. Okay. We're back. So, excuse the creaky chair. They're from Goodwill, and they're currently falling apart. I was talking about religion. So, I know a lot of people are either extremely opinionated about religion or they don't have a clue of it at all. And I'm like way more in the middle, I'd say, leaning towards having no clue, other than the fact that as an atheist, it's super easy to lean into spirituality before anything else. I'm not an atheist anymore, but I'm speaking from like my past self opinion. Because it's almost like less people will care about your opinion when it comes to spirituality and the universe and all of that stuff, compared to if you claim to love God, and there's a lot of opinionated Christians and everything else out there. So I think that when I was going through it mentally, and I was 23, I had just broken up with an ex who had consumed my life for a couple of years. Like, I thought I was going to marry this man, and I had to very quickly look myself in the mirror and say, no, you're not. Get your shit together and leave. So I did, which provided me with so much, like, ego, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. I would say in this situation, it was extremely beneficial to myself, because I don't know, I'm sure some people can relate, but when you go from having to survive and when I say survive, I do not mean like poverty. I just mean like paycheck to paycheck, trying to convince yourself that you can graduate college, like trying to achieve so many things, but falling short for years. Like, no, like there was no mental health support. Like I was doing poor. I was doing really poorly. But then I had met this guy, and it was like COVID was over. Like, people, if you had a vaccine, you could go out and do whatever the fuck you wanted. And so this man who's way older than me and was honestly should have been like in a way different part of his life, but was really hung back in this world that he was living in. And I know nothing about him now. It's been like a couple of years now, and I could literally care less, which is just normal when you break up with somebody. So it was just one of those situations where I needed somebody to help me, to take care of me, to tell me that what I was doing was fine and like promote me. And he did that to the most part. And then eventually things fall apart when they're not meant to be. And I'm just going to put it there because I don't like dwelling in the past, because I'm focused on moving forward, and I've done a lot of work on myself, so there's no need to go into detail about that. But there's the effect that happens, and so I realized that wasn't good for me, and I realized I needed to change my life or nothing was going to happen. Like, it was just extremely stagnant, and I was trying to grow and I couldn't. So that's just one way to know that you need to break up with somebody if you're in that situation. So I get this little studio by myself. It was the first time I had ever lived solely by myself and like didn't have a roommate, and also wasn't paying like $800 for a room. Like, it was a little studio on the top floor of this house, with like the whole top floor was all women who had their own studios. So it was a very healthy environment for me to be in. So great transition, perfect. And I did a hell of a lot of learning about myself during that time. And I also lost a lot of relationships, and I think we all know that growth comes with loss. And so that was one of those times, and it really shaped me. In order to become the person that I have shaped myself into now, I literally needed to go through that. And that's a more kinder version of what I'm talking about when I say you need to go through things in order to like grow, because life isn't kind, and there's a lot harder ways to grow and learn from things. So I'll just say I'm grateful that was the biggest thing. So that's all well for 6 months. I did amazing. I was just, I was doing really well. I was growing really well. All my relationships that were important to me were growing. So that was amazing. And because of that, I decided to move to a different state, because I was reevaluating my life, and I was thinking, what do I need? What do I want? Where do I need to be? And like, this isn't serving me. I already knew I needed to move out of this town that I was living in, because for a lot of reasons. And so I did that, and moving to Oregon has completely changed my life in a way that I'm pretty sure that if I never moved away from California, I would not be in this position that I'm in now. And by that, I mean, I live with a man who supports me, and I live with my partner, my boyfriend, who I'm going to marry this man. I will say it on the internet. Okay? That's how confident I am, okay? There's no ring on my finger yet, but let's just be real here, okay? I'm not stupid. So I don't know where to go from there, but I'm just in a really lucky and supportive and safe environment. And I don't think I would have ever got there. I mean, maybe I could have. There's so many infinite possibilities in the world, but I went through a lot of stuff when I moved to Oregon. Like, it was like purge and repeat. Like, the universe really was like, okay, like, you think you've learned this lesson, now let's teach you, like, let's test you and see if you really learned. And I learned the hard way about trust and giving all of your trust to one person and then being failed by them and being abandoned. And this person happens to be in my family, so I'm not going to like really go into it, because I would like to protect them. Like, it's not that deep, you know what I'm saying? Worse things happen. Anyways, that's just what happens sometimes in life. Like, you have to learn the hard way in order to really face life in the mirror and be like, okay, this is what it is. See things for what they are. You know what I'm saying? When you go through a loss and you start to ascend and like start doing really well and you see things in a really good light, sometimes you can get too optimistic and see things with rose-colored glasses, which is okay. It happens a lot to people. It's happened to me multiple times in my life. And I'm also just, I feel things so heavily that sometimes I can psych myself into thinking something's better than what it is. But come like with new realizations and life experience, like I can apply that to my life in a different way now, which is literally growth. So like, yeah, I'd say let's backtrack and say, what have I learned in 24 years of life? Another thing is how to be alone and how to use it to your devices. That way, I mean how to use it to your benefit. Like being alone for that 6 months before I moved out of that town and moved to Oregon was the most transformative time of my early 20s. And from there, it was just like, I knew that I was going in the right direction at that point. But yeah, and at that point I kind of turned to, what was I saying? Spirituality. I turned to spirituality, and it definitely is what I lead with. And I will also say that, because I'm being really vulnerable right now, because why not? I've definitely been like thinking about God and thinking about, like, I've been to church before, and like I definitely tell people like I'll say on like my Instagram story that like I'm praying for someone or something, because before I decided to let myself be curious in the world of the Lord and whatever you want to say, like I literally don't know the right terms because I'm so uneducated on it, so please see this from that point of view. I just have always like been so faithful in my own personal spirit and my own personal like energy. Like it's just the kind of person that I am, and it's who I've become through what I've gone through. So take that with what you will. But sometimes life you just need a glass of wine. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, yeah, religion's a huge thing, and I don't really know where I am right now with it, but I do know that I will always have the universe in my heart, and that is what I always lead with. That's just, I don't really have a choice anymore. You know what I mean? Like that's just how I am. That's how I move in life. One of the last things I have on here says how to navigate current mental ADHD, autism. I kind of write things in state and just like blocks and not questions, because I always feel like I end up turning it into more than one question. But I wanted to talk about ADHD in women, and I don't know if I should make like just a specific video about this, but I figured since I'm already making a long chit chat video, if you're already here, sitting here listening, and you're like, this is giving my podcast vibes. Because I don't have a specific podcast yet, but I would like to make one. And honestly, I think the easiest way to get into it is to just start talking and posting things on the internet. So that's what I'm doing. But I did not know that I had ADHD until the last couple of years. Like when I say that my 23rd year of life was the most transformative for me as an adult, is because I learned a lot about myself. That it was incredibly, like, important for my self-growth was for me to understand these things about myself. And it's just led to more and more of me learning things about myself, which is incredible, because you should constantly be studying yourself. That's, if there's one thing you take out of this video, it's that I hope that you look into yourself before you look into anything else, because you are a reflection of the world around you. So if you can look into yourself and recognize that, then you can move through life the way you need to. And I'll leave that there. But there's a lot that goes into ADHD, and I don't have like a specific diagnosis, but I've talked to multiple therapists about it at this point, and they've all said the same thing, that ADHD in women is very, very understudied. It's not completely understudied, otherwise I wouldn't know anything about it. It's very understudied to the point that there's a lot of information out there about men and how ADHD looks in men or boys. And pretty much when I was growing up, there was like zero talk about ADHD ever being in women or girls. Like ADHD is in everyone. It can be in anything. Like it's just a mental health aspect. And so I didn't see it as like anything that I should be like ashamed of, because I know some people when they talk about mental health can be uncomfortable with admitting something about themselves that they've learned, because they may be shy or they feel like it changes the way people look at them. But I don't think that matters at all. I think that if anything, if someone is self-aware enough to realize that they have ADHD or they are autistic or something, that is honestly amazing, because I would hope that the people that are my age in this world can understand themselves enough to know that. Because if you don't know yourself, you're just going to go down so many bad, terrible paths. Like that's just the way it goes. Like you will start to mold yourself into other people, because there's just so many things. There's so many things that can happen. There's Kitty. But yeah, ADHD is huge. I think I might just make a separate video about that, because I think that it is something that I want to get a lot of base facts about before I start speaking about it on the internet. But it's huge for me, and it's huge for the way that I navigate my everyday. Along with autism, like I only have like half a diagnosis from one therapist about that, because I haven't been to a psychotherapist yet, psychologist, whatever you want to say, in order to like really diagnose it and like really find out more about myself. But I got enough of a green light about it in order to move forward with it in my life, which is a great start. So I'm really glad that I started with that. But it just all comes down to how sensitive a person you are, the way that you perceive the way people talk to you. Like there's so much about it. So maybe I should probably just make a separate video, but this is my life. Love that. But yeah, if you stay till the end of this and you listen to me talk about life and the way things go and how I think about it, I really appreciate it. I don't know how this video is going to end up on the internet in that way. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to edit it into anything. I don't know what I'm going to do, but yeah, I want to spend more time talking about mental health. Like that is one of the biggest things in my life, and it's just really important to me, because I have made it my life's mission to understand myself. Oh gosh. And to understand the people around me as well, because once you understand yourself, it makes it a lot easier to accept people and to understand the people around you, and therefore just make your life easier. So yeah, if you want to hear more about these kind of things from my perspective, from a 25-year-old woman, stick around, like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm gonna have to get used to saying that if I want to be a content creator, but I will link my Instagram. I don't have a TikTok account anymore. I deleted it because personally, it's not for me. I can't get myself too into social media, or I get straight up addicted, which I know a lot of people are. So take it as you will. See ya.